So, there's this part, and then we have this middle part, and this over here. And if you notice, there are 3 empty spots on the graph. And what that means is if you look right here, and up here, you notice that you have holes in your graph, or you have dots that aren't colored in. So you have something that looks like this. And what that is an open point. Okay? It's open. You can also have a closed point. And I'll tell you what those mean here in a little bit. So for these examples over here, I have f of -7. And like I said, normally you have an x right here. So that's telling you the x value. So I want to look on the x-axis, and I want to find -7. So here's -7. And then we find where the graph is. So this whole thing is the graph. The box is actually the coordinate plane, even though we say draw a graph, and then that box thing is what we draw. So I go to -7, I go find the line of the graph, and it's right here. Okay? So f of -7 is -5. So the value of f at x, the value of f, or the value of my function at -7 is 5. Okay, so you can write it like that, or you can write -7, -5. It's a point on your graph. The other one, or the next one we have, f of a half. So we have a half where the x is. So your x-axis, go over a half, and then we'll go down. And there's our point. We're at -3. So f of 1/2 is -3. So I have the point 1/2, -3. That next one there, f of -1. So I'm going to go over here to -1, and if you notice, I have an open point right there. There's a dot that's not filled in. The graph does not exist at that point. There is a hole in the graph. Okay? So what actually happens is it does not exist. It does not exist at -1. It's going to get really, really close to -1, but it's not actually at -1 for the x value or for the y value. It doesn't exist there. It's a hole. Okay? So I have a hole here at, we would say 3. The graph does not exist here. It doesn't exist at the point 3,8. It doesn't exist at the point -5, -6. It exists up to really, really close to it, but it's not at that exact spot. Does that make sense? Yeah? All right. So here it gave me x values. Now over here it gave me some y values. So on these I looked at the x-axis. So if it gives me the y values, I'm going to look on the y-axis. So here I have a y value of -4. So here's my y-axis. I'm going to go down to -4. So there's -4. And then I'm going to go over and find the graph. Well, it hits right there, and it hits right there. It hits that graph in 2 spots. It's going to happen sometimes. That's okay. All right? So we can say that when x is -9, I have a value at -4. Or when, let's say, when f of 4 point what? 7.5, 6.7. Okay, we'll go 6.7. That's 2/3. So 4.67, we have -4, or 2/3, or 0.75. It's okay. I'm not going to write down -4 and 2/3 because we're not going to use mixed fractions in here. Okay? Not going to happen. All right. And that's because you can't graph a slope of 4 and 2/3. You would have to graph 14/3. Okay? Next one here, f of what is 5? So go up here, y-axis, we're at 5. There's my graph. We're going to say that's at like 6, 7. Y'all are two. We're going to round. We're going to say that's at 2.5. Make our life easy. Okay. All right, that next one there. F of what equals 2? Well, for this one or for this one? I got that 2.5 because it went over here and then went up, and there's your 5. Okay. So here I want 2. So here's 2. And we're going to use the numbers I make up this time. So we have 3 different x values where y could be 2. Right here, right here, right here. So this first one here, we're going to say we're at about negative 3.5. So that's our first one. Next one, that would be this point right here. So we're going to say negative 1.75 is also 2. Come over here. There's that other point. We'll say f of about 2.25 equals 2. So this part right here is the function notation, the f of this value. That's the function notation part. Now, we found all of those by looking at the graph. Sometimes you're going to be asked a value and you'll know the equation, and you might even have the graph. But they could be asking you for a point that is not on there. So say I have the equation f of x equals 3x minus 7. Okay? And I could even give you the graph for that also. And I want to know f of 21. Well, 21 won't fit on here. It only went up to 9. So this 21 is where that x was. So we're going to put this 21 where this x is. So I get 3 times 21 minus 7. So that's 63 minus 7. You get 56. So f of 21 equals 56. Or I have the coordinate 21, 56. And that will be a point on my graph.